Good morning. I'm going to try to fix my my image in just a second. I have to be in my classroom and I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. So unfortunately, I have Good morning. I'm going to try to fix my my image in just a second. I have to be in my classroom and I'm having some Wi-Fi issues. So unfortunately, I have Good morning. I'm going to try to fix my McQuillan this morning and I couldn't get off the call.
That is okay.
Right now, I'm going to have to be on my phone, but at least you'll see me and not my classroom.
Okay.
Dr. Farzad, how are you this morning?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
I am good. I will keep my thing on mute and I'll stop my video and listen to your presentations.
Thank you. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Okay, we are going to get started in a minute. So thank you for being here. If you are watching us live on Facebook, thank you for joining us live. And you can submit your question through Facebook as well if you have any question. Okay, I think we can go ahead and get started. Again, I wanted to thank you all for joining us for the Seafood Virtual Office Hour. We have a couple of pre-submitted questions that we are gonna give the priority to those questions first. And I just want to ask you to make sure you are muted during office hour. You can submit any question in the chat box, or if you feel comfortable, unmute yourself and ask your question. Why don't we go ahead and get started with our panelists introducing themselves? Julia, why don't you go ahead and get started?
Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me okay? This is the
Yes.
normal question to ask in COVID times.
Yes.
My name is Julia McQuillan. I'm professor of sociology at the University of Nebraska. I've had the pleasure of knowing Razieh for a few months, and I'm part of a big proposal looking at consumer acceptance of cultured protein and cellular agriculture. And I'm really excited to have a conversation with you all about your questions today.
Thank you, Julia. Reza, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself?
Thank you so much. My name is Reza Ovissipour. I'm assistant professor at Virginia Tech. And my background is seafood science and technology, and I have another PhD in biosystems engineering. So I have been working on alternative proteins, I would say more than 15, 16 years on different types of proteins, seafood-based material, insects, plant-based, algae-based proteins. And also I would say 2 years ago, we started working on cultivated seafood. We have a couple of large grants on seafood, cultivated seafood products, and we are working on developing novel seafood products for future. Yeah.
That is great. I'm so grateful to have you both on the panel today. And my name is Razieh, Farzad, and I'm an assistant professor and seafood safety extension specialist at the University of Florida. I mostly moderate the question here, but let's start with one of the main questions that we had that I asked Reza to make a short presentation about it. We had a question about the manufacturing process and the production process of cell-based seafood. So I want to give the floor to Reza to share his screen and give us a short presentation about how we produce this kind of product. And then we go ahead and ask the question about consumer perception and the question that were more related to Julia.
Sure, thank you. Well, actually, this is a kind of little bit more than that question, but I will just probably go through this very fast. So, and then I go to the slide. So can you see my screen?
Yes, yes.
Perfect, thank you so much. Well, so, so this is very important because one of our major mission is providing enough food for people. And in order to do that, so since we're gonna have more than 10 billion people by 2050, we need to increase our food production by 70% and our meat production by 100%, which is not really doable at this moment because of so many reasons. As you know, climate change, our current agricultural practices, they are not really sustainable. And since we are focusing on the seafood products, there are many also other challenges in seafood industry. So many of these resources, they are being over-harvested, emerging diseases, marine acidification, microplastics, illegal activities, fraud, for example, red snapper. Here are some information about the red snapper, mislabeling, and once we have them fillet, so it's very hard to kind of trace them back. So traceability is really important in this case, and that's why that seafood, cultivated seafood, can actually provide so many answers for these challenges. So waste material is another issue that we have been always dealing with, and we have been trying to kind of reduce that or produce some value-added products from them. But when we put them together, we can see actually during the last decades, we have been developing different technologies for increasing the sustainability. So we know that the feed conversion ratio in seafood production is kind of in a good shape. And we have been producing seafood and plants together as an aquaponics system, which is really great. Robotics is another technology that was introduced into this area. Probiotics and phage for reducing the antibiotic resistance bacteria, and also plant-based material and insect-based material. These are really great. We have been doing great during the last decades. Some of this technology already been commercialized, and they are available in the market, and they have been helping seafood industry. But future of the seafood, we have sugar kelp as an emerging food products, macroalgae, mycoproteins, and plant-based seafood products, and cultivated seafood products, and 3D printing. These are actually really interesting technology, which can help the seafood industry to move forward, not competing with the seafood industry. The technology depends on the raw source. So technically what we do usually in our lab or any other actually lab that they are working on the cultivated seafood, we take the seafood product and we isolate the cell, a bunch of cells from them, and then we convert them to the cell line. In order to convert the cells from the live organism to the cell line, there are so many processes that we need to apply on the cells to convert them to the cell line and make sure that we have the right cell line. Once we have the right cell line, we put them into the incubator. It's not as simple as I'm presenting here, but technically that's the concept behind it. And then we have the media, we provide different types of vitamins, media for them. We grow them easily in the lab, and then we can actually put them into the kind of 3D environment, which is the reactor, and then we can scale it up from the 250 ml reactor to reactors like 10 liters reactors or 250 liters reactor. This is a kind of a step-by-step process. So after that, we can harvest the cells, or we can actually convert them to different types of cells. For example, if you are interested in muscle cells, we need to actually differentiate them into the different type of cells. Or if you are interested in fat cells, so we need to differentiate them to the fat cells. That's called differentiation method. It could be happen in different stages, depending on the final products and what we are going to do. So we can have unstructured products like dumpling or meatballs. So we don't have to have any scaffold or a specific, scaffolding. But if we want to kind of develop a fish fillet, we need to put them into the scaffold, or we need to apply bioprinting or 3D printer. And technically at the end, we will have some products that they are antibiotic free and disease free. There is no virus, there is no bacteria, and the shelf life already been increased because there is no bacteria involved in this process. And it's very sustainable. I can actually show you it's 99%, it requires 99% less land, 80% less water, and 40% less energy. And technically it's humane, it's killing free, and it doesn't produce any waste material, and footprint is much lower compared to the other production systems. There are some barriers. That's why we are working on those, and we are trying to kind of reduce the cost of the production and increase the yield. So, and I hope with this, I can actually, I could provide enough information for today.
Thank you. That was great, Reza. And I'm sure that is going to bring lots of other questions for the audience, but that was great. Thank you. Sure. So with that being said, when do you think the American are going to accept this product? Julia, you can jump in and like if you have any opinion on that, and Reza, feel free to jump in and tell us what you think.
I'd love if you go first, Razieh. Reza.
Reza, okay.
Oh, sure. Thanks. Thank you. Well, I think it is people they're talking about that. Some people, they started asking so many good questions and great questions regarding the acceptance of the product. People they have been concerned about based on what I have been hearing. So I think people they have been concerned about the flavor, the texture, and also being GMO or non-GMO product. That's kind of important, and we have to actually explain that technically these are non-GMO products, which is really great. You can use non-GMO ingredients when you are producing them, and you can have a certificate for that. In terms of the regulation, we are not still there because technically there is no specific available commercial plant for producing them. So that's why that we don't have the regulation at this moment. But in terms of the acceptance, I have seen people, they have been talking about that and they are interested to taste that. I don't see any barrier at this moment if we can find the right flavor and right texture, and then that's it. So it's another product in the market. So like any other products.
So I'm very excited about your very positive view of the future. I can tell you that seafood may be different than, it might be animal specific. So there might be more openness to seafood. And I haven't specifically done consumer acceptance research or seen a lot on that specific topic as much as beef or pork. And it really, what I have seen in the literature reviews, there have been 2 literature reviews in the last 4 years. The most recent one was about 37 articles done in the last 2 years, and it really varies by country. So if you're in a country where land is scarce or animal protein is scarce and the rising middle class wants access to animal protein, there's more openness. We have done some research with a random sample survey of Nebraskans, and we find that younger people tend to be more open to wanting to learn more, wanting to try cultured protein than actually middle-aged people and older people. If we talk, however, about health benefits, so if we say we can make this tailored to your health needs, so maybe you have a heart condition or you are more concerned about easier to chew food, that if we could tailor the food for your health needs, there's a higher percentage of people that are interested in trying it. What other studies, there's been many studies, small and large samples, taste, affordability, and safety is a major issue. So I really loved your presentation, Reza, because of the emphasis on safety. Sustainability, I thought, and moral issues, I thought would be a bigger topic. I think those tend to be a minority of people who have a big voice, who tend to talk a lot. But the general public, it seems to be more, can I afford it? Does it taste good? And is it safe? And so being able to educate the public, I think, is a super important to have accurate information. In my state of Nebraska, there's more talk about pork and beef than there is about seafood. So I'd love to bring seafood ideas here because I think that would be very exciting to people to have fresh seafood in the most landlocked state you can get in the union. So it really might vary by age, by gender, by socioeconomic status, by religion, by nation, and even region of the country. So we have more work to do there. I hope that answers your initial question.
Yes, that was great. And also Reza mentioned GMO and you mentioned education. How do you think we can use our power as educator to change the future of this industry? We have a good discussion about nanotechnology and GM industry and how like education affected those industry. Do you want to elaborate a little on that, Julia?
Sure. So we have found that people tend to be afraid of GMOs and other research, mostly because they don't understand. I mean, it's really, really horrible, the stories of people going hungry because their governments wouldn't allow them to have access to genetically modified organisms. And one of the education opportunities there is to say everything, including us, are genetically modified. It's just slower, right? It's whether, I mean, we're having this right now with the coronavirus is the genetics are changing, the modifications are happening, but we're the petri dish. It's changing, it's being modified in what are the cell replication that, I mean, you know this better than I do. I'm a sociologist, but my reading of popular press and I do science education around virology is that those mistakes in replication, if that mistake causes an organism that can survive better and spread better, that's going to be the new variant. So trying to help people understand that all of our food is genetically modified. It's whether or not it happened by a scientist and it happened slow or fast. And did it give a competitive advantage? And so, I mean, the basic evolution, right? Variation, inheritance, selection, and time. And so I think nanotechnology did a fantastic job of educating the public early and often, bringing them along on the research journey and being very transparent. And I think what happened with GMOs, the story that I've understood from historians of science is that they kind of sprung it on people. And there's also political issues around how corporations have used GMOs. So it's not just the science and the technology, but it's also the way it's used. So I think we have to be really cognizant of having stakeholders at the table. And I think your work, Razieh, with extension folks to say, who are the trusted people? Similar to people trust their doctor around whether or not to get the vaccine for the coronavirus, who do people trust in the food space? Would it be their extension educator? Would it be their local farmer? Would it be a rancher who also brings in genetically cultured protein, or a fishery that says, we want to make sure the cod industry can come back. So we're going to do cultured protein on cod, and we're going to sell you both, and you choose, but we're going to, you can say, we want to bring back the sustainability of the oceans. We want to reduce mercury. So we want you to understand what you're getting. And your beautiful presentation will be part of that. I trust the public, if we can figure out how to communicate it, maybe with comics or memes or including it in stories, I think people will come along with us and be less afraid. That's my hope. And that's what some of our research is showing with public education.
Great, awesome. So with that, we have another question about who do you think are going to be the early adopter of industry, and what are the opportunities for conventional industry? And Julia, you can talk about your industry in Nebraska, because there are not that many data about fisheries and seafood. And I'm happy to hear from both Reza and Julia. What do you think?
So I'll say one thing, because I have to teach in 15 minutes. So I'm not going to be able to be here for the whole hour. This is such an open space, and I will not try to predict the future because I don't know anybody who's done that successfully. I could tell you with the information we have now, and this would have been different a year ago before the food industry was so disrupted by COVID, where it probably wasn't as salient on the East Coast, but in Nebraska, we had thousands of pigs that couldn't be slaughtered for food because they got too big, because the meatpacking plants were shut down. And the meatpacking plants were designed for just the right size, a very narrow margin of the size the pigs would fit in the meatpacking plant. So they were slaughtered like they would have been, but they couldn't become food. So there's a much more awareness of the constraints on the food system with a disruption like a pandemic that people weren't necessarily aware of, that there could be these places in the system, in the food network, that could be so disruptive. So I think that the younger people, Gen Z people, they care about ethics, they care about sustainability, and they're open to innovation. I think if we can also respect religious, cultural values, and we can say, this is the food that you had for your holidays. This is the food you had growing up. We're just producing it in a new way, but it's the same chemical makeup or slight variation that might make you healthier. So I think, we know historically that that's what mattered, but we don't know if people who like to have blue and green hair and tattoos and all kinds of body piercings might want something really creative. And then we could have a 3D printed Eiffel Tower fish. And so I think we should be really open and ask people and have them at the table. And then I don't want to forget about people of every generation and perspective to say, what does this mean for urban barbecue? What does this mean in Louisiana for Cajun food? What does this mean for the Navajo Nation and their practices around lamb? So I think the early adopters may be really rich people who have the ethics and the education to be curious, but I really don't know. And I can't wait to find out. I'm along for the ride. I want to make sure that people who need the access have it, and we hear their voices, and we don't artificially cut something off. I would love to see lots of microbreweries. I'd love to see small batch bioreactors all over the country, and people creating safe, affordable food so that we get the protein that we need that's healthy. Great. And that it's food. It's not food pellets. It's meaningful food that's cultural.
Yes. So Reza, what do you think are the opportunities for conventional seafood industry? Do you think is there any opportunity there, and how we can connect the novel seafood industry production with conventional seafood industry production?
Absolutely. So a conventional seafood industry, they're going to stay actually in the market. They're not going to be gone because this technology, the cultivated seafood, is a kind of a slow growing, even though it is rapidly growing in terms of the research, but the platforms, they are slow growing systems. So technically they're going to actually work together. So one thing which is going to happen is it's going to reduce the impact of the it's going to reduce the harvesting and the pressure on the wild environment. So particularly for a specific species, for example, like shark, or we don't have to actually harvest shark anymore. So we can produce them in the lab for a specific market. The other thing is actually they can actually harvest them and they can sell them for premium price and for in the restaurants, and they can say, well, this is the wild caught cod, and here is the price, but they can, instead of harvesting more, they can harvest less, and they can sell, they can focus more on the quality. So they can focus on humane harvesting and increase the quality. They can actually focus on the other stuffs like the byproducts that they are harvesting or processing and produce some value added products. They can change their industry from very conventional to kind of a novel industry without changing their product. So technically the product is going to be wild caught, but the price is going to be higher because if I want to pay for the wild caught, then I have to actually pay for the premium price.
Great, thank you. So there was a question that is, I think, is a very personal question, but they asked, which one do you think is better, plant-based seafood or cell-based seafood?
I want to answer this one because there's some new research. MIT Review just did this really great article about combining them. So instead of choosing between plant-based and cell-based, thinking about the best of each and using the right ratio to get the taste, texture, and affordability. And so I don't have an answer about which is better, but I think really thinking about creatively about how do we maximize our yield and health and minimize our environmental impact, and also make something affordable and accessible. So let's think about integrating them is really exciting. I don't know what you think from a scientific perspective, so I'd love to hear what you think from a scientific perspective.
I think I read that article that we can use both product to make the product available on the market sooner, get some sensory attribution from the cell-based, added to the plant-based. But to me, it's just a personal choice because I think they are both good. Some people might argue that plant-based is not actually seafood because we are using plant source. So depending on your personal preferences, you can choose either. Reza, what do you think?
Could it be seafood if it's got kelp in it?
That's a good question. That was another question. Like, what are we name these products? Are they seafood? Are we naming them seafood?
Yeah, I think the naming, yeah, so I agree regarding the name, but so I really like the combining them because not only that you can get the taste, but also you can actually fulfill their nutritional requirements if you are caring about the health also. And technically combining the plants with seafood, that's the best combination, so you are reducing the meat application, meat consumption, and also it's a kind of seafood product with the plant-based material to more sustainable, I would say, protein sources. Combining them is the best option.
So that being, I just thought of a question. So we are still dealing with lots of regulatory problems with this cell-based seafood. If we combine plant-based and cell-based, is it going to bring lots of regulatory problem issues? How are we going to handle that? What do you think? Because
there is the USDA FDA 2019 statement. I was just looking at it this morning about regulation. It doesn't mention seafood at all. And so I think it only mentions pork and beef. So I think that's really interesting. I don't know if has there been more recent cellular?
I think they came into the conclusion that FDA is going to oversight fish and shellfish. There are a specific type of fish, I think catfish, that USDA Food Safety Inspection Services, FSIS, is going to have over regulation of that. But I'm just
Because what they
go ahead.
Right. So the 2019 statement said that up until harvesting, it's FDA, and then once you harvest the cells and craft food, like the 3D printing or making it into food, it's USDA. So they were separating the processes of cellular agriculture. And I just saw a techno-social analysis, and they called it animal cell-based agriculture, ACBA, which I hadn't heard before. I'd heard cellular ag, cultured protein, lab-based. I don't think we should say clean meat because I think it's offensive to the existing industries, but I think that cultured protein or cultured meat, but I don't know if seafood counts as meat. So hopefully you guys have this figured out.
What do you think, Reza? Is seafood meat?
Well, it's the muscle food,
Yes.
I would say. So meat is a kind of very broad name in this case. So even chicken meat, pork meat, or seafood meat, it's a meat.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
So I read the article that depending on the size of the product, we can call it meat and fillet, because fillet has a specific definition.
Yes.
So we still consider fillet a subgroup of meat. For example, we have filet mignon, and filet mignon is meat, right?
Right.
So yeah, I agree with you. I think seafood and fish fillet and all of those things are considered meat. We had another question that, do you think we can make a product that has higher shelf life? You kind of talked about this. Do you think we can make a product that have higher shelf life using the technology? Longer shelf life?
Yeah, sure. So most of the problem that we have with the short shelf life is just because of the cross-contamination. When we have the fish, when we harvest the fish, the muscle is sterile. There is no bacteria unless we have the disease, in the species. But so technically, without that, if we assume that there is no problem with the disease, so the meat is sterile. It's clean. There is nothing there. But once we process them, because of the cross-contamination, so we are going to have some sort of bacteria on the surface of the spoilage bacteria, and also foodborne pathogens, sometimes bacteria. So in that case, in order to control, for example, listeria, we have to have some sort of regulation in terms of the packaging to control them, or some other pathogenic bacteria like Clostridium botulinum. So we are going to have better shelf life because technically we won't have any bacteria on them in terms of this microbial spoilage. But we should consider this fact that some part of the spoilage is coming from the chemical reactions and enzymes reactions. That's different, and we cannot control that unless we use a refrigerator condition. But again, so we cannot really inactivate all the enzymes.
Thank you, Reza. There was another question about the environmental footprint that you touched on it a little bit, Reza, when you were giving a presentation. What do you think the environmental footprint of cell-based and maybe plant-based seafood production is gonna be in 5 years? Do you think like it's better than conventional seafood production? Is the same? Is there any data available there? I know it's a very hard question to answer.
So technically, life cycle analysis was conducted by several researchers around this seafood, cultivated seafood. But I think still we are not really there to do to make the conclusion at this moment, because there are many other parts that they are involved. But in general, if I want to ask the question, yes, because if you look at the scale of the production versus the volume of the yield of production and the input versus the output, it is more sustainable with less footprint on the environment.
Great.
Also, you can use food waste material from an agri-food waste material to feed the stock, to feed the system. Technically, you are removing some waste material from other industry.
You explained the food waste part. Like, so are you saying the food waste in the after you create it, there'd be less parts of the animal that you wouldn't use? Is that what you mean by reducing the food waste?
So reducing food, well, so first of all, yes, that's one of the things. So you won't have waste material like head, skin. That's one thing. And also, so other food, agri-food businesses that they are producing some other waste material. So you can bring them and feed the system with those. And technically you are helping other industry as well.
Great. Thank you, Reza. So again, we had one more question that was about what should we name the product that we kind of talked about this, and also about consumer perception of health and safety of these products. If you want to like wrap it up and give some like conclusion remarks.
Because I have to go in 2 minutes, and I'm sorry, I have to have
yeah.
my mask on again, and we live in COVID, and I'm in a classroom with students. I'm not sure. I think we should continue to, like other things, to listen. I think the framing is important. So the thing I like about cultured protein is if people connect that to other kinds of cultured food. Beer is fermented, yogurt is cultured, kombucha is fermented, sourdough is cultured. Like these, I think it's cultured, you would know better than me, but these are all food that cheese has a lot of chemical reactions. And I was talking to a food safety person this morning who said, I asked about antibiotics and would there be as many antibiotics with cultured protein or cellular agriculture? And I like cellular agriculture as a process. And so it could also be cellular products. I'm not sure we have it figured out yet. I think it also might be different in different parts of the world. There's some research that suggests that China and India is much more open to this, and also small land area. The Netherlands, Israel, Taiwan are real leaders. Why? They don't have a lot of land. And this is something you can do in a small land footprint place. You don't have the wide open spaces of Nebraska or the coastlines that the United States has. And so I think we should stay open to it and try to have sort of as neutral as possible. So not to, that's why I don't like the language that sort of puts down one industry in favor of another. I think we should just have a sort of a scientific, but meaningful and not offensive to anybody. And I'm not sure what that is, but cellular ag and cultured protein seem to work for me right now.
What about you, Reza? Thank you, Julia.
Thank you. Yeah, great points. Great points. Already been covered, actually, everything. So yeah, I agree with you. Education is the most important thing here. We need to compare. We need to do the comparison. I'm doing the same thing for the COVID vaccination on my other project. So trying to kind of educate people in terms of the mRNA vaccinations and comparing with the other products, telling them that the concept is new, but technically we have been using these type of technologies in the past. Even we have fermented meat products in Italian products, Chinese products, even in some of the US traditional food products. So we need to bring them into their attention, make it simple for them to digest the information. Antibiotic is a big deal here. So we have been doing that in our lab. So we are able to produce cell-based meat without adding any antibiotics into the system. That's one thing that we can say that, right? But so we are still far from the industrial scale production.
That's going to be my last question. When do you think the product is going to be available at a reasonable price in United States? I know we have some mixed beef products that are not, they didn't get the FDA approval yet, and we predict that they're going to be on the market in 2-3 years. What about cultured or cell-cultured seafood products? Do you have any prediction for that?
So let's go back and check the price in 2013 for the first cultivated burger, which was $350, I believe. And right now it's only $50. I mean, it was $50 2019, and I'm pretty sure it's kind of less right now at this moment. The price is gonna be reduced significantly once we have the platform for production. And I'm pretty sure that the seafood products is going to be out there within next 3 years after we have the regulatory agencies approve that. I know there are several companies and startup companies that they have been producing them. at some, pilot scale and very successful, very great products. And I'm assuming probably within next 3 years, we can see the final products in the market.
What about other parts of or do we have the product available, not necessarily cell-based seafood, other cell-based for the product? Do we have it available in the market? Maybe in Asian market, is it available right now?
Oh yeah, absolutely right. So cell-based seafood or plant-based seafood, you mean?
So I'm talking about cell-based protein product in general. Is there any cell-based chicken nuggets available?
Oh yeah, so other actually products is available in Singapore right now. They approved that. So chicken nugget actually, and the producer is a US-based company, but they're producing that in Singapore. So regulatory agencies over there, they were kind of more, I think they accepted that and they processed that. But when you say cell-based products, there are other cell-based products available, so but technically not meat, but cell-based fermented meat or this type of stuff, so they are also available, but they are not cultivated meat products. But yes, nuggets, cell-based nugget, chicken nugget is available in the market. And that's why I'm saying that, so we are there, but probably within next 2-3 years, we can have them in the market in the US and see them in the market on the show.
Are you gonna try it now?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Great. Me too. Great.
Absolutely.
Great. With that, we don't have any more questions. I'm so grateful for your presentation, Reza, and being here today. And
thank you so much for inviting me.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend. Bye.
Thank you. You too. Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye.